When people think of Star Wars, a few images immediately come to mind. Lightsabers, Darth Vader's mask, the Death Star, and perhaps more than anything else, the Millennium Falcon, the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. A ship that outran Star Destroyers, escaped the Death Star, helped destroy two galactic empires, and became one of the most famous spacecraft in all of science fiction. But here's the thing. The Millennium Falcon wasn't always a legend. Long before Han Solo sat in the pilot's seat, long before Chewbacca became its co-pilot, and long before the Rebel Alliance depended on it, the Falcon was just another freighter, a mass-produced cargo ship built by the Corellian Engineering Corporation. Its official model designation was the YT-1300 Light Freighter. Thousands of these ships existed throughout the galaxy. They hauled cargo, transported supplies, moved passengers. Most people would never have looked twice at one, yet one specific YT-1300 would eventually become the most famous ship in galactic history. The story begins decades before the Battle of Yavin. Fresh off the assembly line, the vessel looked very different from the Falcon fans know today. Its hull was cleaner, its systems were standard, its engines were factory installed, and it lacked the countless modifications that would later make it legendary. Like many freighters, it changed owners frequently. Records from this era are incomplete. The galaxy was a chaotic place. Ships were bought, sold, stolen, modified, abandoned, and reclaimed every day. The future Millennium Falcon was no exception. Over time, the vessel gained a reputation for durability. That reputation would become one of its defining characteristics, because despite the Falcon's later reputation as a constantly malfunctioning machine, the truth is the YT-1300 platform was remarkably reliable. It was built to last, built to survive, built to keep flying even when everything else failed. Those qualities made it attractive to smugglers, traders, and adventurers, people who operated far from the protection of major governments, people who needed a ship capable of handling anything the galaxy could throw at it. And eventually, one such individual acquired it: a gambler, a businessman, a scoundrel, a future administrator of Cloud City, Lando Calrissian, the man who would begin transforming an ordinary freighter into something extraordinary. Lando didn't simply own the Falcon, he loved it. Unlike later owners who constantly treated the ship as a barely functioning machine, Lando maintained it obsessively. He upgraded systems, improved performance, enhanced comfort, added custom features. The Falcon became an extension of his personality: stylish, fast, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. At this stage, the ship looked dramatically different from the version seen in the original trilogy. Additional escape craft were attached. The hull configuration varied. Many systems remained pristine. The Falcon hadn't yet accumulated the battle scars that would define its appearance decades later. To Lando, it wasn't junk. It was one of the finest ships in the galaxy, and he intended to keep it that way. But fate had other plans, because soon, events on a remote mining world called Kessel would change both Lando and the Falcon forever. The galaxy was entering a dangerous period. The Empire was expanding, criminal organizations were growing, and opportunities for fortune seekers existed everywhere. Among them was a young smuggler named Han Solo. He hadn't yet become the hero of the rebellion. He wasn't yet famous. He wasn't even particularly successful, but his path was about to collide with Lando Calrissian's. And when it did, the history of the Millennium Falcon would change forever. By the time Lando Calrissian owned the Millennium Falcon, it was already a capable freighter. But Lando didn't believe in capable. He believed in exceptional. Where most captains saw a cargo vessel, Lando saw potential. The Falcon became his pride and joy. Every system was maintained. Every component was polished. Every modification was carefully selected. Unlike Han Solo years later, Lando actually kept the ship clean. The Falcon's interior looked almost luxurious. Passengers traveled comfortably, systems functioned properly, and the ship represented everything Lando wanted people to see: successful, sophisticated, and lucky. But one passenger would change the Falcon forever: L-337, a modified droid unlike any other. L-3 wasn't content being property. She believed droids deserved rights, freedom, respect. Her personality was strong enough to challenge nearly everyone she met, including Lando himself. Despite constant arguments, the two formed a close friendship, and L-3 became one of the Falcon's most important crew members. Unknown to everyone at the time, she would eventually become part of the ship itself. Meanwhile, events across the galaxy were pushing Lando and the Falcon toward destiny. The Empire controlled valuable resources. One of the most important was coaxium, a highly unstable fuel capable of powering hyperspace travel. Smugglers could earn fortunes transporting it, but obtaining it was incredibly dangerous. That danger brought Lando into contact with a young Han Solo. At first, Han wasn't impressed by Lando, and Lando certainly wasn't impressed by Han. The two immediately began competing, each convinced he was smarter than the other, each believing he was the better pilot. Yet despite their differences, circumstances forced them together. Soon they found themselves heading toward one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy, Kessel, the mining world infamous for spice production and brutal imperial labor practices. What happened there would become legend. The operation quickly spiraled out of control. Explosions, escapes, riots, imperial pursuit, chaos erupted everywhere, and in the middle of it all stood the Millennium Falcon. During the escape, tragedy struck. L-337 was critically damaged. Her systems failed. Her body could not be saved, but her navigation database remained intact. Facing impossible odds, the crew made a desperate decision. L-3's programming would be integrated into the Falcon's computer systems. The result changed the ship forever. The Millennium Falcon became more than machinery, more than engines, more than metal. A piece of L-3 survived within its systems. Some fans even argue this explains why the Falcon often seems almost alive, why it behaves unpredictably, why it repeatedly accomplishes impossible feats. Whether true or not, one fact remains. Without L-3, the Falcon never completes its most famous journey, the Kessel Run. For generations, smugglers bragged about their ability to navigate dangerous hyperspace routes. The Kessel Run was among the most difficult. Black holes, gravitational anomalies, deadly obstacles everywhere. Most pilots avoided the shortest paths. Han Solo did the opposite. With Imperial forces closing in, he pushed the Falcon harder than ever before. The ship screamed through dangerous space, systems overloaded, engines strained beyond their limits. Failure seemed inevitable, yet somehow the Falcon survived. And when the journey ended, Han claimed he had completed the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, a boast that would become famous throughout the galaxy. The run transformed the Falcon's reputation overnight. It was no longer simply a freighter, it was a legend, one of the fastest ships ever flown. And although Lando still technically owned it, the ship's future was rapidly moving toward another pilot, Han Solo, a man who would redefine everything about the Millennium Falcon. The relationship between Han Solo and Lando Calrissian was built on one thing: competition. Neither man trusted the other. Neither believed the other was as clever as he claimed. And both loved gambling. That combination could only lead to one outcome: a game of sabacc. Over time, Han repeatedly challenged Lando and repeatedly lost. Lando was one of the best card players in the galaxy. He always seemed one step ahead, always had a trick prepared, but eventually Han got his chance. The game that would decide ownership of the Millennium Falcon. The stakes were enormous, because by now Han had fallen in love with the ship, not romantically, but emotionally. The Falcon represented freedom, adventure, possibility, everything Han wanted from life. This time, Han caught Lando cheating, and with nowhere left to hide, Lando finally lost. The Millennium Falcon had a new owner, Han Solo. Few ships in history have ever undergone a bigger transformation. Lando treated the Falcon like a luxury vehicle. Han treated it like a survival tool. Comfort became secondary. Performance became everything. Over the years, Han modified nearly every major system: engines, shield generators, sensor arrays, hyperdrive components, weapons. The ship became faster, more powerful, and infinitely more unpredictable. Engineers often considered the modifications impossible. Many systems should not have worked together, yet somehow they did. That became the Falcon's defining trait. It constantly broke the rules. Much like its owner, Han's new partner Chewbacca also played a major role. Together, they spent years operating as smugglers, transporting cargo, avoiding Imperial patrols, working for crime syndicates, and occasionally finding trouble wherever they went. One of their most important clients was Jabba the Hutt. At first, the partnership proved profitable. Jabba paid well. Han delivered shipments. Everyone benefited, until one disastrous mission changed everything. While transporting illegal cargo, Han encountered an Imperial inspection. Faced with capture, he dumped the shipment. The decision saved his life, but it cost Jabba a fortune. Suddenly, Han owed money, a lot of money. From that moment forward, bounty hunters pursued him relentlessly. Yet despite constant danger, the Falcon always escaped. It outran Imperial cruisers, avoided pirates, survived ambushes, again and again. Its reputation spread across the galaxy. People began calling it the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. The phrase was partly an insult. The Falcon looked terrible. Panels mismatched, systems malfunctioned constantly. Repairs never seemed complete, but beneath the battered exterior lay one of the most capable vessels ever built. And soon, events would place Han and the Falcon at the center of galactic history, because on a desert world called Tatooine, a young farm boy was waiting. The Millennium Falcon's most famous chapter began with a simple transport job: 2 passengers. A quick trip, easy money, at least that's what Han Solo believed. The passengers were Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. Their destination was Alderaan. Their mission would change the galaxy. Before they could arrive, Alderaan was destroyed by the Death Star, an entire planet erased. Suddenly, the Falcon found itself carrying the future of the Rebel Alliance. The journey led directly to the Death Star itself. Captured by Imperial forces, the Falcon appeared trapped. Yet once again, the ship demonstrated its greatest strength: survival. Inside the station, Han, Luke, Obi-Wan, and Chewbacca launched a desperate rescue mission. Princess Leia was freed. Stormtroopers defeated. The Falcon escaped. Barely. The battle transformed everyone involved. Luke began his journey toward becoming a Jedi. Leia joined the growing rebellion. Han became something more than a smuggler, and the Falcon became a symbol of hope. Its role grew even larger during the Battle of Yavin. As rebel pilots attacked the Death Star, the battle appeared lost. Then, at the critical moment, the Millennium Falcon arrived. Han Solo returned, blasting Darth Vader's fighter away from Luke Skywalker. The opening allowed Luke to destroy the Death Star. One shot, one explosion, one victory, and the Falcon was there. Years later, during the Battle of Hoth, the Falcon again became essential. Imperial forces attacked the rebel base. Evacuation was chaotic. The ship suffered constant malfunctions. The hyperdrive failed repeatedly. Yet somehow it survived. Again, and again, and again. The Falcon's journey through The Empire Strikes Back remains one of the greatest chase sequences in science fiction. Pursued by star destroyers, hunted by bounty hunters, tracked across the galaxy, the ship escaped impossible situations repeatedly, sometimes through skill, sometimes through luck, usually through both. Eventually, the journey led to Cloud City, where Han reunited with Lando Calrissian. The Falcon had returned to its former owner, but not under happy circumstances. Betrayal followed. Han Solo was captured, frozen in carbonite, and handed over to Boba Fett. For the first time in years, the Falcon sat without its captain. Yet its story was far from over, because the war against the Empire had only begun. For years, the Millennium Falcon had survived impossible situations. It escaped the Death Star, outran Imperial fleets, survived bounty hunters, and carried some of the most important heroes in galactic history. But its greatest challenge was still ahead: the Battle of Endor. The Empire believed victory was inevitable. A second Death Star neared completion. The Rebel Alliance was walking directly into a trap. Emperor Palpatine had planned everything, or so he thought. The Falcon was chosen for the most dangerous mission of the entire operation. Lando Calrissian had returned. And this time he was back in the pilot's seat. Years earlier, the Falcon had been his pride and joy. Now he would use it to help destroy the Empire. The battle began on multiple fronts. Ground forces fought on Endor. Luke Skywalker confronted Darth Vader, and above the forest moon, thousands of ships clashed in one of the largest battles in galactic history. The Millennium Falcon charged directly into the fighting. Turbolasers erupted across space. Starfighters exploded. Capital ships exchanged devastating fire. Yet somehow the Falcon survived. Again, as the battle intensified, a small window opened. The Death Star's shield collapsed. The station's superstructure became vulnerable, and the Falcon received its final mission: fly into the Death Star itself. The task was nearly impossible. The interior tunnels were cramped. The margin for error was non-existent. One mistake meant death. Lando pushed the Falcon harder than ever before. The ship raced through unfinished corridors, avoiding debris, dodging collapsing structures, and navigating a maze that few vessels could survive. At the station's core, the Falcon delivered the attack that changed history. The reactor exploded. The Death Star began to collapse, and once again, the Millennium Falcon escaped moments before destruction. The Empire had lost. Palpatine was dead. Vader was gone, and the rebellion had won. For many ships, that would have been the end of the story. For the Falcon, it was only the beginning. Years passed, the Empire fractured, the New Republic emerged. The heroes of the rebellion grew older, but the Falcon remained, still flying, still surviving, still refusing to die. The galaxy changed around it. Governments rose and fell. Wars ended and began. Yet somehow the Falcon continued onward, because by this point, the ship had become more than transportation. It had become a symbol, a reminder of everything the rebellion had achieved. Eventually, Han and Leia started a family. Their son, Ben Solo, was born. Hope returned to the galaxy, but history has a habit of repeating itself. Ben fell to the dark side. The First Order emerged. And once again, war returned. As these events unfolded, the Millennium Falcon changed hands several times. Smugglers, criminals, scavengers. Many attempted to claim ownership, but deep down, everyone knew the truth. The Falcon never truly belonged to anyone. The ship seemed to choose its own path, and that path eventually led to a desert planet called Jakku. There, a scavenger named Rey encountered the ship for the first time. At first, she viewed it as nothing more than a means of escape, just another vessel, just another machine. She had no idea she was stepping aboard one of the most important ships in galactic history. When First Order fighters attacked, Rey and Finn stole the Falcon. The escape instantly reminded audiences why the ship was legendary. Despite years of neglect, despite damage, despite age, the Falcon still moved like nothing else in the galaxy. Rey piloted it through wreckage, dodged enemy fire, and somehow survived. Exactly like Han Solo had decades earlier. The ship seemed to awaken, almost as if it recognized adventure returning to its corridors. Soon Han himself returned, reclaiming the Falcon one final time. Watching Han board the ship again felt like watching an old warrior return home. Because for Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon wasn't just transportation. It was family, a companion, a constant presence throughout his life. And for a brief moment, captain and ship were reunited. Yet time catches everyone eventually. Han Solo's story came to an end, but the Falcon endured just as it always had. Rey became the ship's newest guardian, another unlikely hero, another dreamer from a desert world, another person destined to shape galactic history. The pattern repeated, as if the Falcon itself sought out individuals capable of changing the galaxy. The final battles against the First Order once again placed the Falcon at the center of events. Massive fleets gathered, ancient Sith secrets emerged, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. Through it all, the Falcon remained present, still flying, still fighting, still surviving. When victory finally arrived, the ship stood as one of the few links connecting every era of Star Wars. The Republic, the Empire, the Rebellion, the New Republic, the Resistance. The Falcon had seen them all, and that alone makes its story remarkable. But perhaps the most incredible thing about the Millennium Falcon isn't what it accomplished, it's what it represented. Because the Falcon was never the biggest ship, never the most powerful, never the most advanced. On paper, countless vessels should have been superior. Imperial Star Destroyers were larger, Mon Calamari cruisers were stronger, advanced starfighters were faster in many situations. Yet none became legends like the Falcon. Why? Because the Millennium Falcon embodied something uniquely Star Wars: hope. Every time the odds seemed impossible, it survived. Every time defeat seemed certain, it found a way through. Every time logic suggested failure, the Falcon proved everyone wrong. It wasn't perfect. Its systems malfunctioned constantly. Its repairs were often questionable. Its appearance was far from impressive. Yet, that imperfection became part of its charm. People connected with it, because unlike sleek military vessels or powerful warships, the Falcon felt real. Worn down, flawed, but capable of greatness, much like the heroes who flew it. Han Solo, Chewbacca, Lando Calrissian, Leia Organa, Luke Skywalker, Rey. Each left their mark on the ship, and in return, the ship became part of their stories. By the end of the Skywalker saga, the Millennium Falcon had become more than a vehicle, more than a spaceship, more than a piece of technology. It had become a character, one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars. Perhaps even one of the most beloved in all of science fiction. From an ordinary YT-1300 freighter rolling off an assembly line to the vessel that helped save the galaxy multiple times, the journey of the Millennium Falcon is ultimately a story about transformation. A ship that was never supposed to be special. A ship that should have been forgotten. A ship that instead became immortal, And somewhere in the vastness of the galaxy, the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy is still flying, still making impossible jumps, still finding trouble, and still proving that legends don't have to be perfect. Sometimes, they just have to keep going.